Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Narrative. This is Malfunction. I'm here with an amazing guest, Glenn B. Fleming from the UK. It's 9 o'clock there in the afternoon, in the evening on Sunday yesterday to me, and it's 9 a.m. Monday morning. If that isn't confusing enough, I live in the future, he lives in the past, and hopefully wherever you are, you're seeing us now. So thank you, everyone, for jumping in here, and hopefully we have an awesome dialogue, as we like to say here in New Zealand, kōrero. And hopefully, we learn a bit, and I learn a bit because, as you guys know, I approach all my podcasts with total ignorance. That way, I'm just like you, watching and learning for the first time about the subject matter or what's going on.
Know nothing, learn everything. Yes.
That's it. Give us a bit of a bio about yourself, and then we'll carry on from there.
Yeah, I'm a resident of England. I'm in the UK, and I've been working in graphics and illustration and writing for the past 40 years. I currently, I'm an author and artist. I've written 10, or it might be 11 books, I'm not sure. They're currently available on Amazon. I write about things like, I write novels about JFK assassination, science fiction novels, adult humor, children's books. I write and illustrate those. I write about my travels around the world, and this one is currently there, Rapa Nui, Easter Island, which is near you, or somewhat nearer you than me. I went down there a couple of years ago.
Nice.
I wrote a book about my dad was a paratrooper on D-Day, so I got his thoughts and looked at what happened, and I wrote this book and illustrated it a couple of years ago to mark the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And I also produce a magazine called Comics Unlimited, which is available on Amazon. So I do a variety of things. I also do paint. I make films, which I've made this film about Jack Kirby is on Indiegogo right now, and it goes along with this companion book that I've written about my meetings with him and how I got to him. These are on Indiegogo now. So I do a variety of things. I like to draw different things and write about different things. So I've got a wide range of experiences in those in all areas of graphics and writing and all producing and things like that.
Awesome. Let's pop back into. There we go. Back again. All right. So that's 40 years of knowledge, experience. I mean, I was looking at nonfiction, fiction writing, writing as well as being an artist, and writing in various genres. Now, with we were just talking off camera before, setting up, you want to do animation, and here you are at what are you, 60 maybe? I'm 49 this year, so you're about 60, 65?
I'm 67.
All right, 2 years out. So here you are at 67, learning Blender because you want to turn one of your cartoons into a animation.
Yeah.
This is what I find really strange in today's day and age is like you get to a certain age and you're like kind of like bring in the new writers and all that, especially in the silly 2020s of comic books in the Western industry, where they just get rid of the old career writers who have decades at honing their craft. Suddenly, you guys aren't needed now. It's like in Fiji, in Fiji they retire teachers out at 55. Right.
Well,
you kind of think there's 10 more years there.
I don't think, this is just my opinion, I don't think it's good for the soul to retire. You should always have something to do. Now, I'm retired from the industry, from my graphics industry, but in the past 2 years since I retired, I published 7 books. I've suddenly got the time to do it. I draw cartoons. I produced this film about Jack Kirby, and I've never been, and especially with COVID, right? COVID has sent us back to our caves, hasn't it? right?
Yeah.
We've all been pushed back in our caves. I've never been busier. I've never been busier because up until probably 10 years ago, I went to work and I came home. I worked in graphics. I came home and that was it. I'd draw things, I'd paint, I'd write a bit. But since I retired and since COVID, nothing else I can do. And I'm not the kind of person who sits around and just drinks tea or coffee or whatever. I have to do something. Like I like to travel. I've been around the world. I'm writing about that now. And I say to people say, wow, you've done this and been there. And I say, yeah, but I only took my opportunity. And I believe that all opportunities are there. I mean, somebody might come and drop a bomb on your head and all that kind of thing that's going on in Ukraine and all that, but you've no control over that. But what you should do is set out your goals and you should say, I want to do this. And if you see, people, because I've been to many places in the world, people think that I must be quite well off. Well, no, I'm the guy who doesn't go to the pub because I want to save the money for the airfare.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I did. And when I was 50, I was single, I had enough money, and I had the ambition to go to Easter Island. I've always wanted to go to Easter Island. And, you know, I went there and I spent 2 weeks there and I filmed 6 hours of film, which I'm going to put into some kind of documentary sometime when I get around to editing it. But I wrote this book, which is on Amazon now. And it's all about my trip to Easter Island. And what I do, it's called a personal journey because it's my journey to the place. And it's my experiences that I wrote. I kept an extensive diary while I was there. And it's mixed in with the history of the place. So you get a flavor of what the place is like. But you also get a flavor of what I'm like. And that's what I do. And on the Jack Kirby film, it's a personal journey again, because it's not so much about him as about me and my trip to get to him. He speaks on it and it's very interesting. But I like to put a personal twist on it, which is why I wrote the book about my father's exploits in D-Day. Now, I wasn't there, obviously, and he didn't say much about it, like veterans tend not to speak about such things. So I thought, well, you know, he told me a few things and I learned about the mission from the historical documents and wrote the book around that, about him, and mixed it up with, I mean, there are things in there that he probably didn't do, but the stories he told me, I can mix it in and get a general mix. So I like to put a personal thing on it. I like to put a spin on things. For example, about when was it, 2003, I published a book called The Two Faces of Lee Harvey Oswald, Kennedy's alleged killer. And well, let me tell you, I've researched a lot about that. I've been to Dallas and all that kind of thing. If anybody didn't kill Kennedy, it was Oswald. But there are 500 books about that. And I thought, well, I've read all the books of which bullet came from where and who was firing it and who didn't fire it and all that. So what I did, I put a spin on it like I do with all my work. And I wrote it from Oswald's point of view. So there's a lot of information in that book that, or could have been in that book, that he wouldn't know about. So I've written it from his thinking. It's from his point of view. Right. The first book I published was a few years ago, was a book called 1010s, which is a book about football, the World Cup. And it was the 10 players who've worn the number 10 shirt. Because when I played football, I was number 10. So I wrote about that. Right. But it's not, I like to put a twist on it because there's so many books and comics and films about the same thing. So if I'm going to do something, I put a spin on it. And that's what I've done. That's what I do with my work, you know, and that's just the way I work, just the way I am.
So how long were you like with illustrations and stuff? How long were you like outside of your graphic design work? When did you get started and actually, you know, coming up with your own ideas for your own artwork and stuff, rather than, you know, well, you were working as a graphic designer, right?
Yeah, I've always done it. I wrote my first book when I was 8. Now, it was only 20 pages in a school exercise book. But if you think about it, 20 pages for an 8-year-old is pretty good. And I'll tell you, are you familiar with Jerry Anderson's work? You know, Thunderbirds and things like that.
Yeah, I was just watching UFOs.
Right.
I think I'm halfway through it.
Yeah, well, if you go further back and go to Stingray, which is a marionette show.
Yeah, I used to watch that when I was a kid.
Yeah, my first book was about that, and I was only 8.
Okay.
And then I wrote comics. I started to write and draw comics when I was in my teens. And then I pursued that line, and then I went to art college and got into graphics, which was either a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not quite sure even now, because it moved me away from things I wanted to be. I told you before we started, when I was 17, I wanted to be an animator. And it's the only thing I haven't done. I've written, I've produced films, I've illustrated, I've done visuals, I've done layout and magazines and all sorts of stuff. But the only thing I haven't done is animation. So what I plan to do is learn this Blender software, and then I can hopefully turn my cartoon character, which I can show you here. It's called Hatch, right?
Right.
Turn him into a cartoon film. And this is a comic that's coming out soon, and that's what I want to do. So it's a funny thing, because you know it's taken me 50 years to get back to what I wanted to do in the first place. If I can learn how to use it, I might not be able to learn how to use it.
Well, it's how life is, isn't it? You're sort of like you kind of think, okay, this is the way I want to go, and you get distracted by other things around you.
Yeah.
But slowly get back to what you want in the end. If you're not too lazy, I think it's the whole idea of like wasting time, and like you said early on, like you save money, you don't go to the pub, and I'm actually at the moment I'm thinking it's like I could save money by not buying action figures or comics right now for the next 2 years, and I could save all that money to put into what I want to put into. But my what is it called? The now happiness is more important to me right now than putting it away.
I'm not saying I didn't go to the pub. I'm just saying I didn't go to the pub every night. So you've got to live. You've got to live, because you're only here for however long you're here for. You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't generally. You don't see your end. You know.
No, we're not guaranteed tomorrow. So why not just be happy and enjoy your life? That's right.
So it's not that I didn't go to the pub. It's not that I didn't go out or see it. I didn't live as a hermit for 40 years or whatever I was doing, but I didn't go out and get, I don't know what you call it, get bladdered every night like some people do.
Sloshed.
Yes, to get sloshed every night. I'm not saying I didn't get sloshed occasionally. Of course I did, but not every night. I was always working, because I used to stand in the pub with some imbeciles, and they'd tell me about all these great things they'd done. And I'm thinking, how did you do that? You were standing next to me last night. When did you do this? And then then they wouldn't see me for 6 months, and I'd go in and they'd say, where have you been? And I'd say, I've just been all over Canada.
Yeah.
You know, which they would only dream about. And I bet they're still in the pub tonight and wishing they'd gone to Canada. Well, I did that. You know, so that's the. But I always think it's of opportunities, and I always say to people, life is what happens to you. You've got no control over that, to the most part. But you should look. You should identify your options and opportunities and take them, because I believe that I have missed more opportunities than I've taken. But I've done a lot of things, and I'm proud of that. And I write books, and okay, not everybody can write books about it, but they can still have their memories and experience. You know, I'm fortunate enough, I think, that I can go to Easter Island and take photographs and write about it and document it, and all this kind of thing. And I'm fortunate to do that, and then earn some money, publishing these books. But that's what I do. But that doesn't mean that somebody can't go to Easter Island and enjoy it and experience it, and then talk about it to their people, or not talk about it. Just hold the experience.
it is the whole I guess, I mean, like, on the one point, like, I mean, COVID has just shown us that we can use technology and stuff and not have to rely on, you know, on so many other things to get things
Yeah,
done when we just put our pen to paper. But on the other side is you have people who've just used that not to do anything at all because it's
yeah.
just too easy to not do anything at all.
Well,
It's just it's the same sort of like thing when you got like, you know, it's easier to destroy than to build,
yeah,
you know. So I think if you've got a limited time, uh, you know, why not spend it in things that you love doing or that gives you
yeah,
happiness rather than
yeah.
things
You
that could be
don't.
destructive to your nature.
Yeah, I go by the philosophy, or my philosophy is, we're here for a good time, not a long time.
Yeah,
And life can be as crap as anything, as people can testify. Anybody can testify to this with their parents or their heritage or whatever. But that
yeah,
doesn't mean that you know, I don't mean you, I mean the person
yeah,
as
yeah, yeah,
can isn't free or strive to be free and go
yeah,
to those places and do those things. If you want, if your ambition is to go down the mall and sit and drink coffee all day, then do it, because you will have
yeah,
achieved your ambition. My ambition is to go to every continent on the world, go to as many countries as I like, as I want, as
yeah.
there are. I think there's 185 countries.
Mm.
I want to go to them all. There's lots of places that I can't go, and because it wouldn't be advised.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
I would still, if I could afford it, I would fly to those places, get off the plane, touch the ground, and then get back on
mm,
the plane.
yeah.
You know, I would do that.
Just say that
But
you were there.
yeah, take a picture,
Yeah,
bottom of the steps, touching the ground,
yeah,
and then get on the plane and get the hell out of there. I would do that if I had the cash, but I don't have that
yeah.
kind of money, because I think money is for uh, money isn't bad. A
No,
pound note, a pound note, or a dollar
it's
bill never hurt anybody. It's the people who are using it that make it bad.
that's it. I think people get confused between the love of money and money. You know, it's
Yes.
that whole.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a biblical thing. Like, I mean, like you
Yeah.
can use it to further your goals, or you can take it and get sloshed every night and have nothing happen in
Yeah.
your life. And
Yeah.
we're talking about traveling. Last week I was traveling to talking to my friend, my 2IC, and about maybe doing exchange artist exchange with Korea, with
Oh,
Japan,
wow. Japan.
and
Yeah.
with China, because what
Oh,
that means for us is like being able to like and so there's three forms of comic book art, as you know, with Japanese, Chinese, and
yeah.
Korean. So manga being Japan, manhwa, uh, manhwa being Korean, and
Korean. Yeah.
manhua, HUA, being Chinese. And so I'm like, I would love to be able to think about doing that. Whereas like 3 years ago, then even only thing I could think about is Machu Picchu. Now Machu Picchu doesn't even matter that much to me. Now it's focused onto these, you know, these because
Right.
they do, you know, illustrations, they do manga, they do anime and stuff. I mean, I was thinking, wouldn't it be just so awesome to be amongst these guys and for 2 weeks
Yeah.
just seeing
Yeah.
how they work
Yeah.
and asking the questions with a translator there, because I don't speak any of those languages, but you know, hire a translator, and next thing you know, you're learning why you do this, why you do that, you know. And that's one of the things that, like, I think a lot of people have lost about how uh, true diversity works, where you actually have an exchange of culture, of food,
Yeah.
and languages, and you know, not based on any push or anything. Just let's sit down, you know, show me what
Yeah.
you know about this thing that I'm working on, and
Yeah.
how, you know, like my mom's like, well, how do I cook that? Show me how to cook this. Why do you use that? And it's like that sort of thing for, I mean, like in our industry is amazing because, I mean, if you look at a lot of the artists in DC or Marvel, like the top five, they're not from America as much as they're from everywhere else.
Yeah.
And and I think this whole pandemic has also allowed us to actually work with people outside of our, you know, our close units or whatever, groups, and be able to reach across the world and say, hey, would you be interested in working with this and that? And like, I mean, like I was, with on that, getting to working with Michael Mead with his, with his book, when you guys are considering doing a book with his observations on Jack Kirby, which now sort of brings me to Jack Kirby, and a lot of people. I mean, like I was pulling out my little book here that came with like these toys that my brother bought for me a couple, like about a decade ago, and it's just been sitting on my shelf and stuff. So I mean, I was looking through what Jack had created, and you've got Hulk that was created by Jack, right? So you've got, like design work, and you've got like Captain America, you got Thor, Fantastic Four. I think that Ditko was the one with Spider-Man, but like anything of major lasting,
significance,
test of time has Jack's designs on it. Let's talk about Jack, because I don't know really much about him apart from like, hey, here's a guy who did all this stuff, and then he got pissed off at Stan Lee because I'm sued about how Stan said I created this, I came up with a name, and so on, and therefore it's my origination. And then he went over to DC, and then I think, did he go out on his own after that, or what happened there?
He went back to Marvel first, and then he broke out on his own about late 70s. He went on his own with the Pacific Comics and Captain Victory, things like that. But I think what you have to learn, what people don't realize, is when you read the Golden Age of comics, or well, it's called the Silver Age of comics from the 60s. Stan Lee's name is very big. Now, Stan Lee was a car salesman, right? He sold the product, and without him, there wouldn't be any product in terms of popularity. But Jack Kirby was the creative hub. He created everything. And what you have to do, I think, in comics is look at Jack Kirby and work backwards. And he did have a hand in Spider-Man. He brought a character he designed in the 50s called The Fly, took it to Stan Lee. Stan Lee thought it was great. And of course, Stan Lee thought of it. I was just going to tell you that, and claimed it. And then when Kirby, apparently the story is that when Kirby brought his pages in, Kirby draws very heroic figures and strong, tough figures like Thor, and Captain America. And Stan Lee liked the concept, but he didn't like the drawing, so he gave it to Steve Ditko, who draws very. I don't mean this in the bad way. Sort of weaker. He doesn't draw big, tough guys. He draws weaker, real people, and that's what it was about. Do you understand what I'm not so you
aged him down.
Yeah, I'm not decrying Ditko's work because he's a wonderful artist and creator. No. But Kirby draws people made of granite and rock, doesn't he? Whereas Ditko, they're human, they're bendy, and that was the thing. But Kirby's hands are all over Spider-Man.
I mean, it's the difference between that, isn't it? Between Ditko and Kirby. So you got your Kirby, and you got your Ditko. Yeah. So it kind of, because they're more realistic, as you said, whereas I think Ditko is more like in the Greek, bodybuilders that they base their artwork on.
Yeah, he draws perfect anatomy, whereas Kirby breaks the laws and puts 50 muscles in where one is and all that kind of thing. Yeah. But what Kirby did was, if you look at the timeline, he created Captain America with Joe Simon in the 40s. Stan Lee was nowhere. Yeah. Kirby goes away to war, comes back, Stan Lee's still nowhere. And then in 1961, when Kirby's got 20 years experience, he goes to Stan Lee. Yeah. And all of a sudden there's this burst of energy for 5 years. And then Stan Lee claimed it all. And then when Kirby got pissed off with him, he left. And then Stan Lee didn't write anything after that. There's a clue. But Kirby gave us New Gods, Eternals, all this, Black Panther, all this stuff. So there's a clue there. If you look at the timeline, there's a clue. But Stan Lee was a great editor and a great salesman, and he was also a great dialoguer. But Kirby would put those pages in with notes on the side. You've probably seen the original artwork with the notes on the side telling effectively Stan what the story was about. And Stan Lee would put great dialogue on them, better than Kirby's dialogue, I think. A bit schmaltzy and a bit twee, but it was great. but he didn't create them. He didn't create them,
Yeah.
in my opinion. He didn't create them because it's obvious on the timeline.
Well, that's interesting because and we've always known like Stan Lee is me in the sense like I'm the mouth, right? I'm the mouth for what we do, what we do. I'm the mouth. I'll get out there. I'll be out there, and then I have my mate who does all the figures and stuff. Doesn't say much at all, but he does a lot of work. That sort of thing. Or I have all these guys behind me who design all this stuff, but I'm the mouth selling the product because I want to make sure all that succeeds.
But you've got to remember
But,
that in the mid-60s, when at the peak, when Lee and Kirby were at the peak, or when Marvel Comics were at the peak, you've got to remember this. Jack Kirby was drawing 5 and 6 pages of comics a day. People like Ditko were doing 2 at the maximum, right? So Kirby was writing a book a week. He'd draw the Fantastic Four in a week, and then he'd draw Captain America, and then he'd draw Thor. His output was incredible. And at the same time, he was doing all the covers. He was doing lots of layouts on other people's comics that they were following. So how can a guy like Stan Lee be telling the story when the guy is drawing the story off Kirby layouts? Why did Stan Lee take the time to tell Jack Kirby to do layouts? Why didn't he tell that artist guy to do do you see what I mean? So I'm not here to bash Stan Lee. He did a great job.
Oh, no. I mean, you had the car salesman and you had the mechanic.
Yeah.
Or the manufacturer, I should say, of that car. It's a different thing. There's a guy who puts on the paint, and there's a guy who actually builds the damn thing.
Yeah.
So, we wouldn't have all these amazing characters like Thor, Captain America, Hulk, Fantastic Four, Black Panther, as you mentioned, and without Kirby. And the other great thing about this is I was just thinking about that when I was looking at the list. You got a white Jewish guy who went to Second World War writing a story about a black African in a fictional place, and yet we love it here years later.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a fictional world, and it's and that he's able to create and make real now. And I'm not sure if they actually put his name on it or not, because I don't think I was paying attention to that. But that we wouldn't have all these characters or this whole Marvel universe without Kirby at all. Because of the
with regard to
you couldn't have Spider-Man without the Fly.
That's right.
Right.
With regard to the Black Panther, you've got to remember this: that Stan Lee didn't serve abroad; he stayed in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby was at the Battle of the Bulge. He was in Bastogne and all that shit. Right? He went through all that. Now you've got to remember this: that when Kirby was in Battle of the Bulge, the American only had what they call Negroes, then units. All those guys would be in one unit. You would never get a black guy in another unit.
No.
It would only be in a black unit. Right. Now forget the politics and reasons for that, but this is the point.
Yeah.
When Jack Kirby was in the Battle of the Bulge, he would see these guys, these black guys, and he probably didn't have a problem, and most people don't have a problem. Some do, but most don't. We're all okay, basically. Most people.
Well, we're talking about 1943 here, 45, right? So
that's
right.
But Kirby came across these black guys, and they call themselves the Black Panthers. And then 20 years later,
this is the military group, yeah.
This is
the unit.
The unit, not the political thing that came about in the 60s. Nothing to do with that. No. They call themselves the Black Panthers because they were black guys and all that. So 20 years later, the Black Panther suddenly appears in the FF, and Stan Lee said, "Oh, I've got this great idea, Black Panther. Oh, it just so happens that I met these guys 20. It's just ridiculous."